This is a cool slow motion shot. I don't feel like that's going to fit in the edit that we're doing here. That's something to keep in mind when you're doing your edit. Is it a bunch of normal real time footage that's not slow motion, and then all of a sudden we have this, footage that's shot at 240 frames a second when the rest of our footage is shot at 30 frames a second. If you do something once randomly in an edit, then it's just random out of the blue. If you do something twice, then there's like a theme going on that makes it very likely to happen a third time. So that's something to think about, is that things generally do better in pairs or triplets. If you're going to do some type of stylistic choice or slow motion footage, don't have one slow motion clip in your footage. It'll be like a random blip. Okay. If you're going to do that, have two, three slow motion shots, or the whole thing is um, slow motion. So this is a really cool shot, but the audio is not going to be usable. So that's something that we're going to get into here in a minute. And we kind of have our last shot here, which is all these little yogis here meditating in front of the waterfall, which is kind of cool. So if I scrub through here, there's really no change in this clip. So even though this clip is about 30 seconds, because we're sitting still and there's no information that's changing in the actual footage, what's being shown on screen, doesn't matter too much where we create our in and out point. But I will kind of look and see if there's anything cool. The waterfall kind of does a cool splash here of kind of mist. So I'm going to create the endpoint there. Actually, yeah, it happens there. There starts to be some of that mist that comes in. So let's go ahead and make this blue, and let's put this with the waterfalls. And to recap, what we've done is we've captured all of our footage, we've organized it on our computer, laptop, we've created a backup to keep everything safe, keep 2 copies of things, and we've pulled our selects, organized everything, and labeled our clips in our timeline. This is the step where now we want to create a backup sequence of all the work we just did. And there's a reason that we're going to be doing this. And that reason is when we're going in this edit and we start moving things around and we start, trimming things down and deleting clips we think we're not going to use, sometimes we don't make the right decision, which we think is the right decision at the time. But then later on, we're like, oh, where's that one shot? I know who's in there, and it's gone. So over the years, I've really learned that creating a backup of your selects is going to save you a lot of time down the road. So this is kind of a little extra pro tip here. We're going to click our main sequence in our project window, and we're going to hit Command C, or we can go and right click it and hit copy, and then we're going to paste, which is Command V, or right click and hit paste. So now I have this backup sequence of the selects we pulled. What I'm now going to do is label it what it is, which is main sequence backup. Okay. And drag it and put it in the sequences folder. So now I can always come back to this backup if needed. So, how has your edit been going so far? Good. Okay, perfect. So now we've made it to our next step. Now that we've pulled our selects successfully, we're going to be moving to creating our rough edit. Now, in this phase, this is the stage where we're going to put shots roughly where they're supposed to be. And we're not going to focus too much right now on fine tuning, on things like coloring, on things like exposure matching, or getting any of the real nitty gritty right yet. We're just really going to build a basic foundation. Okay, we're going to build the skeleton with a low frequency of cutting so that the main concept of the overall video can be seen. So if we were editing to a soundtrack, if we were editing to a storyline, we want to try and get all the spots in our timeline hopefully the correct order, and fill any blank screens. So we want to line things up. For example, like I mentioned, a voiceover. We're not going to be doing a voiceover for this one just yet, but we're going to place our B-roll on top. This specific example doesn't really have any A-roll. We'll get more into that. And we want to get our right shot ordering together. And next, because I love doing these backups, man, I've learned time and time again over the years doing these little extra copy, duplicate, paste, put it in the folder, nothing to worry about. You're good. We're going to do another backup of our rough edit sequence once that's done. Because, of course, it's always a good idea to duplicate your sequence before going in and making big changes. And once the rough edit is done, that is the perfect time to step away from the project and take a little break and come back with fresh eyes. It's also an optional time where you can get client feedback, team feedback, friends and family feedback on the edit, just to get another perspective of how the basic rough edit is looking before going into fine tuning. There's a how do I say it? There's a phase of editing down the road on the more refining side when you start really spending minutes, hours, days sometime on 10-second sequences. In this rough edit phase, before we get to that, we want to make sure the whole thing cohesively is making sense and is telling the story that we want to be told before getting to that phase. So that's why after we finish this next section, it's a good time to take a break, come back with fresh eyes, and look at it with a brand new perspective. Because once you're sitting in front of the laptop for a while and you've been looking at the same frames, you start to go blind in certain ways and you start to go deaf in certain ways. So as we go deeper into that, you'll start to see. But we're not quite there yet. So in this next step, we're going to create and assemble our rough edit. And so, depending on the type of travel video you've been editing during this whole portion, is really going to dictate what your opening shot is going to be. And something I want to mention is the same way that every single shot has a beginning and end. Every single video that you create has a beginning and end. I know this sounds obvious, but the reason I'm saying is because we just went through on how the beginning cut and the ending cut are so important, because you're showing the person what is important to start looking at, and then what is important to end looking at or end hearing. It can be an audio thing, a dialogue thing, it can be a visual thing. Our whole video is like a zoomed out view of what happens in one edit. I don't want to get too abstract here, but we want to start with a shot that really like sets things into gear, sets things in motion. The opening shot of your video, regardless of if it's a music video, commercial, comedy, documentary, YouTube video, Instagram video, TikTok video, it doesn't matter. The opening frame, the opening shot dictates the tone and the vibe and the feeling that the viewer is going to have for the rest of the video. The ending shot is kind of the conclusion. It's what they walk away with. So something a little bit deeper to really ponder, think about that. But let's get more back into the practical side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scrub through and I'm going to find the shot that really grabs me, because if it grabs me, ooh, yeah, okay. If it's grabbing me and my attention, it's a good sign that hopefully you can grab someone else's attention and get them interested in your video, because that's the whole point, right? So this is definitely a contender. I like this. I think it's a unique type of shot. I mean, the scenery is like just ridiculous. We don't want to get too much down into like too low here, so maybe we'll start the shot, let's say there, so that we get the vibe, the kind of point of view feeling. That's an example of continuing to refine. When we did this first pass, like, okay, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now on the second time when I'm looking at that shot, it was starting with a little bit too much leg, a little bit too much leg action going on. So what I'm going to do is, because this one catches my eye the most, I'm going to slide this over to the very beginning of our edit. That way we open up on this shot and it really sets the tone and the feeling for what the rest of the video is going to look like. And if it's obvious the clip is too loud, we can bring that down a little bit by clicking and holding that white bar. But I don't want you to worry too much about getting the audio levels perfect because that's one of the final stages of creating the edit. So we have this opening shot, and I'm going to cut it right about there. It's interesting when we're looking at the waterfall, but then we start going over here too much. So let's cut it there. And let's just see, because I think this next shot that was kind of already placed there is pretty interesting too. It's pretty unique to see that, especially because it's really contrasting this first shot. So you want to keep in mind what you're editing. If you're editing something that you want to be like a travel video that's really punchy, it's cool to have contrast, like an image with a lot of reds in it and then an image with a lot of blues in it. Okay, that's going to create more of a punchiness and impact for the audience. So let's see how these two flow together. Okay, so I think I want to start this a little bit later. And that is feeling like a pretty harsh cut because the audio is so drastic. But what we can do is continue to bring down the audio on the really loud waterfall. Let's keep that for now and let's keep moving forward. We'll really fine tune this audio, but let's try and get the right ordering and the right pacing for our visuals here. So this first shot is about 4 seconds, as you can see. And I want this to feel kind of like a story, kind of like turning pages, and you're going through the traveling trip. That's going to kind of dictate the pacing. Now, the pacing is the amount of frequency of cuts. Okay. So if it's like boom, 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 that's a pretty slow pace. If it was like this, okay, boom, 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 don't mind the audio, but that's a much faster pace, which makes things feel a little bit more moving forward, a little bit more acceleration, a little bit more energy, a little bit more of a quickness. Okay. So let's continue to move forward here. Let's go ahead and cut that clip there. Looking back at this one, it doesn't really do a whole lot. So I'm going to delete that. This boomerang is cool, but I want this to feel like a flow. I want someone to be able to watch this video and flow through it like they went on the trip themselves. And this boomerang where it's going back and forth is not flowing for me. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. And I want you to be making those same decisions as you're going through right now with your rough edit. What is the purpose and the primary sensation, feeling, takeaway that you want the viewer to have? And is the visual or audio that they're experiencing right now in your edit giving them more of that thing that you want them to receive? Just like a chef is choosing certain food ingredients to bring together, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of cayenne, to spice things up. If that's the kind of dish you want to make sure that all of your ingredients, which are your edits, are creating that final dish that you want to create. It's a nice analogy there. So let's keep it moving here. That is far too loud. I'm not super feeling this one, so let's go ahead and delete that. And of course, we have our backup. So if we do want to go back and put that shot back in once we have our rough edit, we will have that there. So okay, so we have two yellow shots here. Oh yeah, okay. I really like this clip here. Um, it's got people in it. It shows the environment. I think there was already really good audio from it as well. Yeah, you see, like it's not even going to take that much work to get it sounding good because the audio is already really good. Okay. I don't feel like we need this waterfall shot because we already have a shot in our edit that tells that story. So if you have some type of duplicate that's not really pushing your footage, your story or video along further, just go ahead and take it out. I do like these two shots. I'm gonna go ahead and hold on to them by pushing them to the back. So what I just did right there is I highlighted the clips that I feel like I may use in this edit, but they're not going to be happening at this place chronologically. And I highlighted them and did Command X, which is simply instead of copying, you're cutting it, which is going to remove it from the timeline. And then I'm going to take the player head to the back of the timeline and paste it. Okay. Now I'm going to ripple delete and remove that extra space there. And let's see what we have here. I want to see what this shot will be like directly after this. I like that there's kind of something to link them together, which is the trickling water sound. That's something to kind of keep in mind when you're doing an edit that's like this is you can blend things together by having certain similarities, whether that's something similar that's in the frame. Let's say you have two shots of a sunset and you cut them together and the sun is in the same place on both shots, or the camera movement is similar. On this shot, when it's ending, the camera is going this way, and on the next shot, the camera is doing the same thing. So let's see what these two look like. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of scooch this over. So I like how those two are cutting together because it's a similar camera movement and the audio in the background is going to be similar when we do level that out. And I like this linking together of these kind of different water shots. So let's skip forward here. And let's see how dragging this one in after this. Okay, that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect just now on this rough edit, but I think those will cut together and we can even add, because this is a tripod shot for this meditating yogi shot, but we can even add a little bit of movement when we get to our next stage, and I'll show you how to do that. As we can see, you can kind of tell I'm kind of cutting these shots even in half the duration that they originally were when we pulled our original selects. So that's something that I kind of mentioned where you don't want to get too nitpicky too early on in your edit. It's way faster in the long run to do something that's a basic layer, a basic pass through the edit, another basic pass that's a little bit more refined, another basic pass that's a little bit more refined, rather than finding the exact shot in the exact location with the exact timing. So hopefully that's making sense. Here's something interesting. We have a situation here in this edit where there's kind of an abrupt cut here. I finish what I'm saying. Okay. But then there's something in the video that I don't want to be there. Okay. So one thing that you can do so that a cut doesn't feel so abrupt is to match certain things in that end of that cut into something similar in the next cut. Now, I do kind of a quick like head turn here, and that actually flows perfectly into action in the next shot with a similar type of movement or motion. So the person's eye is going to be looking right here at me as I'm turning. And in that next shot, there's a foot coming into frame that's also moving rather than turning, but it creates more of a seamless cut. Now, if I were to, for example, start this shot maybe here where there's not that intro motion into the clip. Let's see what that looks like. You see, it's almost like there was something weird hanging out right there that makes the next shot kind of, there's kind of a weird, a weird subtlety. But these things I want you to be able to really pick up on at this stage to start thinking in a way of how you're creating something that looks unique and feels great when someone watches it. So we have this, without using a similar motion in the next frame, the next clip, to kind of mask a little bit of an issue we had there. And then we have that one that helps fix that problem, right? So the shot that you have is always having a communication or a dialogue with the next shot. Every frame is talking to the next frame, which is talking to the next frame. And you create a whole string in your edit that creates this wonderful conversation that builds a whole story. So anytime there's a little bit of a weird word in your frame that's kind of a mistake or something that sticks out, it's going to throw off the viewer. So these are cool little things that you can kind of pick up on to keep things smooth and feeling really good in your edits. It's stuff that you've felt, but you've never been able to put a word to why it is that you feel that way. So let's keep it moving here. Okay, so here's something I'm noticing here. Both of these shots have a really great pan, a nice smooth pan to show the scenery, but they're going in different directions. So there's two ways to get around that. You can either reverse the speed of one of your clips, or you can flip the orientation of the clip to change its direction. Let's do both of those and see which one we like the most. So I'm going to right click my second clip here. I'm going to go up to speed and duration, and I'm going to click reverse speed. This is going to make the beginning the end and the end the beginning. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, don't worry about the audio. The audio is going to play in reverse. Okay, so that works. Okay, that's one option. So I'm going to undo what we just did. And now I'm going to do the second option, which is to flip the orientation of that clip. So I just added the horizontal flip filter here that I typed in from the effects tab, the effects panel. And now let's play it through. Okay, I'm liking that a lot more. I'm thinking that fits better because the coloring here is kind of a tan and green, and then the coloring here is kind of a tan and green. Versus when we flipped, when we reversed the image, now it's kind of a dark black green because that's what's at the end of the clip, which doesn't really cut together in my eyes as cleanly as that does. Cool. So that feels like a nice concluding shot. We have our edit now at 49 seconds, which is perfect. Our aim was to create something under a minute. And now the next thing to do is to take a look at the entire edit from start to finish. Okay, and so now it is time for us to go back and actually watch our full rough edit for the first time. So by now you should have your selects pulled, your shot ordering made, your overall pacing, no blank black screens in your edit, and a decently cohesive video that's ready for you to watch with a neutral perspective as if you were a viewer seeing it for the first time. Okay, so go ahead now, pull up your edit, start at the beginning, and we're going to play it all the way through. And we're going to take mental notes here on what sticks out that is working and what sticks out that's a little bit more important on what isn't working. Anything that's distracting, that's a little bit, ooh, okay, no, I need to change that, or that's really not working, or this really isn't going to make it into the final edit. You want to sit there and really keep an eye. So squeaky. You want to sit there and really keep a little mental note, keep track of that. So in some stuff that's a little bit more complex, I personally will start a notes tab on my phone and on my laptop. So I'll go in and let's say Mount Shasta, edit, and I'll start a bullet point list of, let's say, for example, 14 seconds, remove shot. And then, for example, at 30 seconds, Brighton. So you can kind of either go through, pause, and put the notes down or watch it all the way through. But that's just a little bit of a side pro tip there that depending on how complex your edit is at this beginning stage, we're not getting too complex yet. So, with that said, let's really keep track here mainly of the visual elements that need to be changed. We're going to do another pass together and work more on the audio fine tuning. But anything that comes to mind, feel free to take a mental note or jot it down in your notes with the timestamp. So, let's go. Now that is a waterfall.
Yeah. Okay. Whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, cool. So not too bad for a rough edit. I feel like it gets the point across, and hopefully for your edit as well, you're getting the general gist of what you want to share across to your audience. I think this does for the audience. You get a feel of what Mount Shasta is like, what it's like to get out and immerse yourself in nature, out in this location, experience the amazing like waterfalls that they have, all that good stuff. So there were a few things that really stuck out to me. The first main one, besides the audio, was this definitely needs some motion. This tripod shot at 25 seconds needs some motion. So I'm going to say add motion, 25 seconds. Definitely at 4 seconds, I want to replace the audio with something a little bit more cave like and a little bit more, I don't know, mystical versus people just talking in the background. That's good. That's good. And then as an overall note that doesn't really need a timestamp, but that I can tell is needed, is adding a crossfade of the audio between the different cuts. So I'm going to add a note in here. Add audio cross fades. Okay.